Today we are going to discuss related to the vessel supports. Now basically when you talk related to the vessel support, it is the different types of the vessel and the alignment associated with that vessel that decides the type of a support. There are basically the four different types of the supports they are used. One is your skirt support, second is your bracket or lug support, third is the saddle support, and fourth is the leg support. So these different four types of supports, they are associated with the cylindrical vessel. However, the similar or different type, you can say, the vessel supports, they are used for your spherical vessels. In this chapter, it is the designing related to the cylindrical support, and which is for which we are going to discuss related to the bracket support, skirt support, saddle support, and the leg support. Now, one is aspect is related to the type of the vessel, that is whether it's a spherical vessel or whether it's a cylindrical vessel. Now, in addition to that, it also depends on the height to diameter ratio of a vessel. That is, what is the height of a vessel? Height to diameter ratio of the vessel. Then convenience of location. That is where it is located. That means whether it is inside the building or whether it is outside the building. Then the depends on the operating temperature and the material of construction. So these are the different points on which the type of the support that is to be decided, whether it's a spherical vessel or cylindrical vessel. Then it depends on height to diameter ratio of the vessel. That means whether it's a tall vertical vessel or a small vessel or a vessel of around 3 to 5 meter diameter. So depending on that, your support type of the support that varies. Then convenience of location, operating temperature, and material of construction. Besides that, the what are the different attachments to the vessel? That also has to be taken into consideration while deciding the type of the support or designing of the support. Then cylindrical vessels can be installed either vertical position or horizontal position. And the type of the support for such installations are different. That means first category is related to the spherical vessel and cylindrical vessel. In case of your cylindrical vessel, it's a vertically alignment or whether it's a horizontal alignment. So the alignment of the vessel and the height diameter ratios of the vessel, that is going to decide the type of the support. Uh, these are basically the four different types we have talked, that is your skirt support, bracket support, saddle support, and the leg support. So, now when we are going to discuss these supports, that is basically it has to be given the sufficient strength to rest at proper position. It should not overturn. It should not get overturned. That means it should not get bent. Now, on the roads or on the squares, you see the tall vertical columns for the tall vertical poles for the lights. The heavy lighting systems are there in different squares or different locations. All those light systems, they are provided with a certain poles. And when you see those basement of the pole, you will be going to see the different basic support system on which you can see the base plate, the concrete foundation, base plate, anchor boards. All these are the basic components of the support that can be seen with attached to these vertical poles associated with the street lights or lamps. So one by one, we will see the different types of the support. Now, this is the most simplest type of the support, that is the leg support. Now, as a human being, our body that is also supported with the legs. That is, the two legs we are provided. Our body is small one, not a huge dimensions. So this body, eh, the weight of the body that will be balanced by the legs. So if you will look to or correlate to our body, that is this leg support which are directly welded to the vessel and are vertically aligned. So in this figure, it's a four leg supports they are provided, two leg supports they are provided. They can be three or four. Generally, it is the multiples of the two they are provided, and that again depends on the dimensions and the amount of the fluid or the amount of the content that is to be stored. That means its weight, its own weight, and the weight of the vessel itself, that is going to decide. We will and in our mixer pots sometime, it is provided with a certain type of a support. Those mixer pots, certain round neck or round circular that is provided, that is nothing but your skirt support. Most of your mixers, that is your Maharaja mixer or Anjali mixers, they are provided with the skirt support. That means certain round black color or white color that is attached to your steel vessel. So that is for the support and for fitting purpose, where the grooves they are provided with this support. Certain grooves are provided and you get locking has to be provided in that vessels. So that is nothing but your skirt support. So first is primary the leg support, then the next is your skirt support. Then the bracket support, which is also called as the lug support, and the fourth one is the saddle support. Now these leg supports, these are used for small vessels of say 1 to 2 meter uh, cube vessel volume. Means small vessels, our tank, overhead tanks, they are generally of 1000 liter, that is nothing but 1 meter cube volume. So 1 to 2 meter cube volume overhead tanks, plasto के जो tanks which we generally use, that is either of 1000 liter capacity or 2000 liter capacity, which you can call them as 1 meter cube or 2 meter cube tanks. Uh, Now these tanks, they are resting on the floor generally. So, but there you require the complete support for the base because they are plastic one. But if it's a overhead tank that is you are going to provide, so you provide a certain leg support for that, and on that leg support, a certain platform that will be there, and on this platform you are going to put the vessel. That means a tank you are putting, overhead tanks. एक नीचे में कुछ तो सपोर्ट देते हैं 4 legs का. So that is your nothing but the leg support. For small size capacity and small weight loads, these skirt leg supports, they are generally used. Now next is your skirt support. Now skirt, that is similar to your skirt, the girls which they wear the skirt. So it is the outer diameter of the vessel. So this is my outer diameter of the vessel, and the inner diameter of the skirt, they are going to match. Outer diameter of the vessel is going to match with the inner diameter of the skirt support. So in this case, the skirt which is having the somewhat higher diameter uh, at the bottom, and this is the same diameter at the bottom. Diameter of the tank or the vessel is same as that of the bottom diameter of the skirt, and it can be at a higher diameter also at the bottom. So it is the parallel skirt and the expanding skirt, you can say. And now generally these skirt supports, they are used for the tall vertical vessels. That means your distillation columns, then your absorption columns, extraction columns, which are the tall one, tall vertical vessels. You are going to use the skirts support. Now this is a tall vertical vessel, you can imagine, a water bottle. Now I'm going to put this water bottle just on the floor, on the ground floor. Now I'm going to give the force so that it is going to bend it, right? It is going to be tilted. It can overturn if the force exists. I am applying the force, and this force gets overturn this vessel. So that depends on the applied force. Because I have simply keep this vessel on the ground, now I am going to provide the support. So that I have provided the skirt support, and I am going to apply the force. So applying the force, that may tilt the vessel, but it is not getting overturned. For overturning, I have to tilt my hand. I'm going to tilting, I'm going to tilt my hand. Then and then only it is getting overturned. So that the skirt, unless and until it is uprooted, the vessel will not get overturned. So this is the common vertical vessels or the tall vertical columns. They are provided with the skirt support. Now when we design the skirt support, then the dead weight of the vessel, the weight of the vessel itself has to be considered, plus the uh, weight of the contents, that is the operating weight of the vessel, means the fluid or the solids which are available in the vessel, that total weight has to be considered. Then lateral loads by restrained thermal growth of interconnecting pipes. That means what are the different attachments to that vessel, and that is those different attachments that is going to generate the torque on the vessel. Then next is your wind load, which is acting over the vessel. The wind force continuously, if the tall vertical vessels, as similar to our hill station or our hill college hill, there you can feel the more wind as compared to the lower levels. So it is the if the vessel is tall vertical vessel, then the wind load acting in the upper part, wind load acting in the upper part will face a higher load because of the wind as compared to the lower section of that vessel. Now, what can be the vessel height? Vessel height that can be of 10 meter, 20 meter, or even sometimes 30 to 50 meter. That depends on your uh, purification capacity or the vessel dimensions. Generally, if it is more than 10 meters or so, then it is uh, kept outside the building, or sometimes if it is inside the building, then the wind load that may not act, or the intensity of the wind load, if it is situated inside the building, then it is a minimum in that cases. But if it is directly in the atmosphere, or sometimes if it is on the seashores where heavy wind load that will exist, so one has to be cautious about all this wind load. Or some cyclones are frequent, cyclones are there, then this acting of the wind load and causing the damage to the plant has to be taken or given the more priority. Then the seismic load, that is because of the earthquake. So all these different types of the loads that is to be taken into account, and based on that the designing has to be done. Now if you will see this skirt support, at the bottom there is a concrete foundation that is provided, and on that concrete foundation the base ring and the backing plates they will be provided, and which are attached with the anchor bolts. So anchor bolts they are to be provided so that it should not get overturned, it should not get uprooted. Now, designing aspects, when we will talk, we will have just today introduction related to the designing aspects. Uh, the four different types of the stresses that is to be taken into consideration, that is the dead weight and the operating weight of the vessel, then the lateral load because of the different attachment piping systems, then the wind load and the seismic load that is to be taken into account. So all these different loads that is to be taken into account, and from there you can calculate the maximum tensile stresses and the maximum compressive stresses for the skirt support. So this because of the different loads, what will be the stresses? So that stresses has to be calculated, and then these stresses, developed stresses, has to be balanced by the skirt bearing plate, or the concrete foundation should be strong, and on that concrete foundation whatever the attachments they are provided, you can also see these different attachments related to your lamps, street lamps. So anchor bolts are mostly you can see everywhere anchor bolts, uh, but in addition to that the base plate and the ring plates there are also can be seen at some locations where the height of the poles, those light poles, that is more. Then you can see the different support systems. Then what must be the dimensions? How many number of the anchor bolts that is to be calculated based on the different stresses. So stress calculations that helps to calculate the number of bolt, area of the bolt that is required, then the base ring, and that is to be calculated. So what must be the thickness of that base ring, and how many number of the bolts, and what must be the dimensions of the bolt, that is to be calculated in the process of designing. Now the next is related to the designing of the bracket or lug support. Now looking at this figure, that is the bracket support or the lug support. Now this is generally used for the smaller diameter vessels. That is 2 to 3 or 2 to 5 meter diameter vessel, and the height is also less. L by D ratio is not too high. That is, the vertical vessels with the height to diameter ratio of 2 to 3 are generally provided with the bracket supports, and these are fabricated from the plates and attached to the vessel with the minimum possible weld length. So these are your bracket supports. You can say the different types of the plates that is attached to this bracket support. One is the base plate and base plate on which these brackets support that can be welded. Now these are for horizontal plates. They're called as the stiffening plates. These horizontal plates, they're called as the stiffening plates. So these two plates are the stiffening plates, and there are two vertical plates. They're called as the gusset plates. These types of the stiffening plates and gusset plates also can be seen on the roadside associated with your skirt support or the base type of the support. Now this is it's a front view, you can say, and this is the side view for the bracket supports. So generally it is the four brackets they are used. Now these brackets are again provided with the certain legs. So these brackets they are provided with the legs. If I am providing the clearance between the ground and the vessel height. Now sometimes these brackets they are resting on the floor. Resting on the floor means if it's a building, means say on second floor, we are keeping a hole, and on that hole this vessel that is going to rest with these brackets. So I am going to hold this, and on this with these brackets that is going to rest on that floor. So this floor that will be acting or resting for the brackets. So this is the a more common case, that is where L by D ratios are less 2 to 3, and which are provided inside the building. That is, these are the brackets they are used. They are also called as the lug supports, also bracket support or the lug support, that is also called. So it is less costly and can be easily attached to the vessel with the minimum weld length. So to minimum weld length, that means we are trying to reduce the welding cost, and that can be easily leveled. So leveling of this which will be required is for proper operation, so that can be very easily leveled. Then can absorb the diametrical expansion if sliding arrangements are provided. Now if the temperatures are high, then the lateral expansion of the vessel that may takes place. So certain grooves that is to be, or expansion that is to be provided, where your bolt can change its position due to the thermal expansion. Then most suitable for the thick wall vessels. So if the vessel wall thickness is sufficient, then it is better to use this bracket support, or if it is a less thickness, then we can provide with a certain backing plate. So the brackets are reinforcing plate, therefore these are not suitable for the thin wall vessels unless the vessel wall is reinforced with a backing plate. So certain backing plate that is to be provided, and over that backing plate I am going to put the stiffening plates and the gusset plates. So these are welded to the vessel. Then in designing of this bracket support, one has to take into account the different load because of the weight of the vessel and because of the wind. So the total weight of the vessel, total load that is to be calculated, and then the bending moment that is to be calculated from there, and then column supports, how many number of column supports that will be requiring for that, and next is the designing of the saddle support. Saddle support, these are generally used for the horizontal vessels. These are used for the horizontal vessels. Now if it's a horizontal vessel, you can say this is the horizontal vessel, and to this horizontal vessel I am going to provide the saddle support. So these are the two saddles which are provided. On the roadside, sometime you can see the big or the huge pipelines, they are provided with the saddle supports. Roadside may heavy or the where the pipelines, huge pipeline, big diameter pipelines, they are mostly provided with such saddle supports. A saddle खोगे type अशा टाईपचं कर्वेचर राहतं, and there on that you are going to put the vessel that will be resting suitably on this type of the support. तो इसमें इस टाइप ऑफ द सपोर्ट में ये वेसल प्रॉपरली फिट हो जाएगा. So these horizontal vessels, they are generally provided with the saddle support. If the underside to the vessel is to be located only a short distance above the ground line, it is the height or the clearance from the is very small, and it is providing with the concrete foundation. So this is the concrete foundation, this is the one saddle, and this is the second saddle that is provided. So generally it's the two saddles they are provided. If the it's a pipeline, then you are going to provide the more number of saddles. Then while designing this, means for horizontal vessels, we are going to use this saddle support. And again there we are going to provide a certain uh, concrete foundation for this saddle, where the bending moment calculation becomes more important. Now this vessel will act as a beam in this case. So when it will act as a beam, so bending moment has to be taken into consideration. So it's a beam supported at two different locations. So its bending moment diagram that will appear like this. So the stresses induced due to the saddle that is to be calculated, that is the bending moment calculated at the center and calculated at the support. So bending moment calculated at the center and the bending moment calculated at the two supports. So that is the bending moment calculation. From that bending moment calculation, you are going to calculate the stresses. After calculation of the stresses, then you are going to ultimately calculate the thickness of the base plate. And in this case, this is the again attachment that will be provided. So this is to sustain the thickness load due to the saddle support. We are going to provide the stiffening rings. So this is the stiffening rings, this is actually vessel, and this is actually the saddle support, and to this vessel we have provided or welded with this stiffening ring. So this is nothing but a backing plate, supporting plate, or the stiffening plate, and on this stiffening plate we are resting. So this is the stiffening plate, and this stiफनिंग प्लेट उसके नीचे में वो सपोर्ट आएगा. So this is related to the vessel supports. This is introduction to the vessel